Hello and welcome back again. My name is Steven Snake, and today we are going to be taking a look at the new dev diaries that Riot has released. And technically, some of them are not new because they have been released over the last few days. And today was the final one being released, which was the esports one. So we are going to go in order, and we're not going to include the Awakened cinematic since that's technically not a dev diary. Well, it's not a dev diary at all, even though it is their first thing that they released. So we are going to be taking a look at the ranked and gameplay section first. Now, before I start, I do need to say that I will only be going over these very, very quickly. I'm hoping to have this video less than about 6 or so minutes. Probably not. However, that being said, if you do want to know a bit more information, I recommend watching the videos. I will leave them all down below. And also, go check out other people that might be covering these in more detail. Anyway, let's just jump straight into the ranked and gameplay. So, first things first is that they have said that they want to be focusing more on new things this year. Whereas last year they was focusing on like updating and changing things and balancing things away around older things, making them brand new and fit more in the current state of League, such as Runes Reforged and many other areas. This year, they want to be focusing more on the new things, so adding things rather than changing things. So that is quite cool. They also was talking about the new modes. So they talked about PvE and PvP game modes that they released last year, such as the Odyssey event for PvE, and then for PvP you had the likes of what was it? You had the project game mode, which actually that wasn't last year, but I can't even remember PvP game mode. All Random Earth, I guess you could say one. There was like loads of others that were dotted around the year. You also had that separate game mode that was recently cleared up. I completely forget its name. But either way, they was talking about new modes, and they are planning on adding even more this year, adding more in for loads of other things, more Star Guardians, updating older variants of them. So they might bring back Star Guardian this year, which we'll be talking about a little bit in a minute. Project might be getting a new game mode, etc. So this is quite cool. We're going to get some more modes. Then they also talked about the removal of mid-season. For some reason, Riot is going to be removing mid-season. That way they can add more stuff into in the pre-season. Next up, they talked about that Clash is going to be coming in the first half of this year, and the track record of Clash is not very high, so don't put your hopes up for this. I'd be surprised if it comes out. I hope it does, but just be ready for it to not to. Next up, we then move on to the second dev diary, which is the new Champions one. Now, they started off talking about Silas, the fact that he's now released, which is all cool. Then they start talking about the next VGU, or VGUs, technically, as Kayle and Morgana are going to be arriving into the game in a couple of patches. We don't know exactly when. Personally, from what I've been seeing and how far ahead they seem, probably 1 or 2 patches, I'm assuming, so we might be seeing them in 9.4 or 9.5, just as a quick guess. Anyway, for Kayle, they start talking about that they want to keep her relatively the same, how she is now in the game. Obviously changing up her kit, they want to keep the feeling of her being a auto-based champion that starts the game as a melee, but as the game progresses and she buys items, she ends up becoming a ranged hyper carry. And they also talk about that they want to keep the very supportive side of her, where in the game right now she has the heal and she has the protecting ultimate. She's going to keep that in some way or another, so she can still be played in support. Then for Morgana, they talk about that they're not going to do too many changes. However, they did say that they want to make her a lot more reliable in the late game, so it doesn't feel like she's just throwing her life away just to get an ultimate off. So that is quite cool. Then they move on to their next new champion that'll be released after these two, which will be a new support champion. And they talk about that this champion is going to be a new enchanter support, which we've not actually had since Nami. And sure, you may say Rakan, but Rakan was actually a playmaker, more so than an enchanter, which is quite cool. And he also says that there's something to be attached to, and which he puts a very big emphasis on attached to. So there might be some sort of mechanic where he attaches to your ally or something like that. And what I'm thinking of currently is much like Callista's soulbound thing, which is interesting, and personally that works a lot better for the likes of a support than it does for an AD carry or something similar. So I'm actually quite interested to see what they do with this. Also, pointing out from the Reddit actually realized if you turn on the captions on, there's actually a little line in there where he says perfection or something similar like that, but he makes it sound like a cat. So the purr he sound in the word, which loads of people are expecting this new champion to be some sort of cat like yodel or something like that, which sounds interesting. I can't remember. I think the last yodel we had was Kled, if I remember correctly. And yeah, we do have a yodel support. We have Lulu. So that's quite cool. Next up after that, they start talking about the next VGU, which will be released, which is going to be Mordekaiser, which is actually personally one of my hyped reworks that they are talking about. As personally, I don't like Mordekaiser right now, he kind of as absolute shit, but Mordekaiser is actually the final big rework that they need to do. As for Mordekaiser, they talk about that they want to keep him as a AP bruiser in the solo lane, no longer in the duo lane, as it doesn't really fit his themes, which is pretty understandable. Then they start talking about a new assassin champion for the mid lane, which is actually interesting. Personally, I'm not too excited for assassin. I'm an AD carry player, so hearing that there's going to be a new assassin kind of sucks a little. Hope he's a lot more like Echo, personally, where he's an assassin, but he's not like one-shotting you type an assassin. Nearly not as quick as others. Anyway, then we move on to the universe. So this is the lore type thing. First of all, they start talking about that they want to start moving stories forward, because right now, stories are very stagnant, where they release a new champion, that progresses the story, but so far. As it doesn't, there's like a point of the story where it does not move, and that's the story that we are playing in the game. However, starting with Demacia, with the release of Silas, they want to start moving these stories forward, so these are no longer just locked in time. So that's quite cool. Then they start talking about that they're going to be looking at Bandle City. Now, personally, I think they're going to be doing Bandle City probably when the new support champion released. If this new support is a Yordle, then they'll probably look at Bandle City at that time. Then they talk about the story in League itself. So they was mentioning how they want to show off these stories, and they talk about having more comics and having these stories over multiple issues and other things like that. But they also talk about having these stories in League itself, which is interesting. The last time we've had a story in League itself was with Gangplank and his death. As you guys should remember, a few years ago, when they updated Gangplank, they did a whole update to the forgot the region now. The pirate region. I've completely... Belgewater, that was it. They updated Belgewater, and in that little story, they had Gangplank be killed off. Kind of. He wasn't actually killed off. But in the story itself, he was killed off for a short time. And in the game, he was actually disabled. You could not play him. Apparently, they're going to be doing more stuff in-game, which is interesting. So, maybe. After that, they then talk about more comics to come, and they're going to be over multiple issues, with the current one going on being Ash, which if you haven't actually started reading any of that, it is actually pretty fucking cool. I'm not talking English. Okay. Then they talk about that after Ash, we're going to be getting a new one for Garen and Lux, which is actually interesting, because this is actually a dynamic that we've not had a lot about. As, if you guys don't know, Demacia is very anti-magic, and Lux, being a very high up in Demacia, is a mage. So, I'm actually interested to see the dynamic there, and plus Garen and Lux are brother and sister, so it's more interesting to see how does Garen interact, does he stay loyal to Demacia, or does he stay loyal to his own family? That's what I'm interested about there. Then they talk about Zed and him tracking down an assassin. At the moment, loads of people are expecting that to be Jhin, as even though Jhin is not actually an assassin in the game, in the lore, he is a assassin, so that'll be interesting, because I really do love Jhin, and I want more Jhin stuff. Then they start talking about writing a book, more so a novella, which is, if you guys don't know, it's a very short story, so It's a little bit disappointing. I was like, kind of expecting a bit more than just a novella, but I guess this is them just dipping their toes into a book. I recommend watching TB Skyn. He's a very good guy to watch for this type of thing, as he talks a lot in depth about the universe, so go check him out. And finally, they then start talking about that they want to do more stories in other worlds, such as Star Guardian and Project, which is super exciting. Then we move on to the next dev diary, which is skins and events. Personally, one of my favorites. So, first of all, they start talking about that they are going to be bringing back some old themes, mainly Project, Arcade, and Star Guardian, as last year they actually took a year off. Now they're going to be back again, which is super exciting, and I cannot wait for them. Next up, we then have the Versus event. So they've been doing the Versus event a little while. The first one they did was the Riven versus Yasuo, which was pretty cool. The last one last year was Garen versus Darius, which is super cool as well. This year, however, they're going to do a little bit more of a fun one rather than a super serious one like they've done in the last two. This one is going to be cats versus dogs, which is actually interesting to say the least. So, one of the skins they did show off, we don't know the other one for the cats yet. However, for dogs, we're going to have Fizz representing them, which is actually interesting. And looking at the skin itself, it's a bit hard to say if they're going to be doing legendaries this year, as just looking at the Fizz skin seems like it's going to be just a normal skin, normal 1350 skin, but who knows? It could be legendary. Anyway, they also said that they're going to be doing a new skin line based on the shonen anime, which is interesting to say the least. So they talk about the champions are going to be like superpower champions, and there's an entire class-based system. Now, here's the thing I'm a little bit confused when they showed off the image, is that there were 8 different badges, or 9 technically, but there was 8 badges underneath teacher, and these 8 badges are a bit hard to say that are these going to be a badge for a certain champion? Like, is there going to be a first year and a second year for every champion for each of these badges? Because if that's the case, that means we are going to get 9 skins for this event, which is super cool. Now, they also did say that this is going to be released with a new champion, and with Silas just came out, it's clearly not going to be him, because they would have said it's with Silas, but as I said earlier, that there is going to be a new support, and the new support has a book as his teaser, and one of these badges is for a teacher. So, is the new support champion going to be tied to this? If so, that means this event is going to be coming sooner than later, because we are expecting this new champion at some point in the first half of this year. So, probably in a month or two, I'm guessing, maybe 3 months at max, we're probably going to be getting this, which is super cool. Then they start talking about the old skin lines and them being updated. So last year we had the update of High Noon, where they added a very demon-esque style into the High Noon, and they are planning on doing that more with older skin lines, which is actually interesting. Just the top of my head, it's a little bit hard to say where they're going to be taking certain skin lines. Hopefully, I actually think they should do some more with the Battlecast theme, as personally Battlecast is one of my least favorite themes, as it's just generic, boring robots. Then they also talk about more skins such as KDA. Now, they're not going to do more KDA skins, but they are talking about doing more music-based skins such as KDA or Pentakill as well. Then they talk about there's going to be more prestige skins coming this year. Obviously, this year we've already got the Blood Moon Aatrox, and we also have Firecracker Vane prestige skins. And they also talk about that there's going to be a KDA Evelyn and KDA Ari prestige skins coming as well early this year, probably in 9.4 or 9.5, I'm guessing. Then they also talk about there's going to be new skins for champions that have not received some in a while, such as Nunu, Shaco, Zillion, and Ivern, which is super cool. Then they actually talk about a very interesting thing. They talk about a new way to show off your skill and mastery of a champion, and that was it. Now, normally that would be fine if the gameplay team is talking about that, as we have the mastery emotes. But the fact that the skin team is talking about this means that are we going to get the Mastery Chromas that everybody's been hoping for? Maybe. Then then he ends off the comment of staying legendary like Zed and Jin. Now, people are expecting this to be a new legendary skin for both Zed and Jin. Now, as you guys remember in the universe, they talked about that there's going to be a new comic based on Zed looking for Jin, or just looking for this assassin, which people are assuming is Jin. Are these new legendary skins for that? Probably. Finally, we go into the final dev diary, which is about esports, and this one's very quick. So for esports, they talk about the MSI this year will be in Tipai in Vietnam, which is actually really, really cool. Then they also talk about more ways to earn rewards for watching the leagues, which we're already experiencing if you actually keep tabs. And then finally, they also talk about more leagues to help up-and-coming players and more like college leagues and things like that, which is actually super exciting and a new way of bringing more talent into the LEC, which is the European League, which is actually really cool. So that is all of the dev diaries. I've actually gone a lot longer than I was hoping for. I'm actually on 20 minutes. Shit. Oops. So that's actually really, really cool. So overall, I'm super excited for the skins. Champion seems a bit interesting, but personally not my thing, as none of these champions I'm too interested in. I'm interested to see what they do with Mordekaiser, but I'm not interested really in playing it. So other than that, I guess it's really cool. The universe, I love the league lore. It's a little bit in shambles in areas, so I'm more excited to see where they take it. Anyway, that is everything that will be covered in these dev diaries. And yeah, as always, hope you all enjoyed. There'll be links down below for you guys to go and watch it. And yeah, anyway, I'll see you all guys next time. Until then, peace out for now.